Welcome back to the channel where we dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and the surprising value tucked away in everyday pocket change. And today we're going to talk about one of the most shocking and intriguing coins ever minted by the US Mint that could be worth up to $20,000 or more, and that's the legendary 1983 Lincoln 1-cent coin. A coin that has captured the imagination of collectors and enthusiasts around the world not just because it's old or scarce, but because of a series of unusual minting errors, composition mishaps, and production quirks that together make it one of the most desirable modern pennies out there. And if you've got an old penny jar or a coin collection gathering dust in a closet somewhere, this is exactly the kind of story that might just inspire you to start digging because yes, that coppery little coin from the 1980s could potentially change your life. So stick with us as we unravel what makes the 1983 penny so valuable, what kinds of errors to look for, and why this particular year and mint mark combination has become such a holy grail in the numismatic community. Starting with the historical context that lays the foundation for this coin's value. As many collectors already know, the US Mint made a significant change in 1982, switching the composition of the Lincoln cent from 95% copper to a copper-plated zinc format due to rising copper prices. And while the public was mostly unaware of this switch, it meant that from 1983 onward, all pennies were supposed to be made with a zinc core and only a thin copper coating, eliminating the previous all-copper format that had been in use for decades. However, as is often the case when major changes occur in production processes, mistakes can happen, and in the case of the 1983 Lincoln cent, it appears that a few planchets, those are the blank discs that become coins, were struck using the older copper alloy by mistake, likely left over from the 1982 stock or mistakenly included during the transition, and that's where the value begins because a 1983 cent struck on a copper planchet instead of the correct copper-plated zinc one is considered a major error, and is incredibly rare, with only a few examples ever confirmed, and those have fetched enormous sums at auction, with some selling for over $15,000 and others pushing the $20,000 mark. But that's not the only error to be aware of with this coin because 1983 also saw a number of dramatic double die errors, where the die used to strike the design onto the coin had been improperly manufactured in such a way that the resulting image appears doubled, most notably in the inscriptions like 1 cent, et pluribus unum, and United States of America, which when doubled creates a distinct and unmistakable ghost-like appearance of the letters, and collectors pay a premium for strong examples of these doubled dies, with the 1983 Philadelphia cent having a known doubled die reverse that's relatively famous among error coin circles, but less known is that the Denver minted version, the 1983 may also exhibit lesser-known varieties of doubling, although examples are far rarer. And this adds another layer of potential value if you happen to have a 1983 penny showing signs of doubling, and when you add to this the potential for transitional errors, such as being struck on the wrong planchet, either copper instead of zinc, or even foreign planchets accidentally used during production, the possibilities for finding a valuable specimen increase even more. For instance, some 1983 cents have been found with a lighter or heavier than normal weight, suggesting the wrong metal was used, and a simple digital scale can help determine if a coin weighs around 3.11 grams, which would indicate a copper planchet instead of the expected 2.5 grams for zinc. And while such transitional errors are exceedingly rare, they're not impossible, and the very fact that authenticated examples have sold for tens of thousands of dollars makes them a worthwhile item to search for, even among rolls of pennies from the bank or pocket change from the grocery store. And it's not just the composition or doubling that matters either because strike errors, off-center strikes, die cracks, lamination errors, and even die clashes can also impact a coin's value dramatically, especially when they occur on a coin that already has notoriety like the 1983 cent, for example, a coin with a major die crack that runs across Lincoln's portrait, or a dramatic off-center strike where a portion of the design is missing, can make it an eye-catching and desirable piece even to collectors who aren't necessarily focused on this specific year or mint mark. And then there's the added allure of rarity, since while billions of pennies were minted in 1983, the number of documented 1983 copper planchet errors is incredibly small, with fewer than a dozen certified examples known, making it a true needle in a haystack scenario. But the payoff is so substantial that it's worth learning to recognize the signs, and this brings us to diagnostics, which are the key traits that help determine whether a 1983 penny is a rare error or just a regular coin. And the first thing any collector should do is weigh the coin on a precise digital scale to check for that telltale weight difference. Remember, copper cents weigh about 3.11 grams while the standard zinc version weighs around 2.5 grams, and that's usually the first clue that something is off. But next, visual inspection becomes crucial, looking for sharpness in the details, clarity of the lettering, any unusual doubling, odd texture, or coloration that might indicate a different alloy or a minting flaw, and magnification helps here because many of these signs are subtle, especially when you're looking for microscopic doubling or planchet flaws, and authentication from a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC can dramatically increase a coin's value because it confirms the error and adds a level of trust and legitimacy that collectors are willing to pay more for. And certified 1983 copper errors are among the most sought after by specialists in modern era coinage, so if you believe you've found one, it's worth sending it in for verification, and even if it turns out not to be a copper planchet error, other anomalies might still be present that add value, such as striking errors or minor varieties. And given how few people are actively checking their change or investigating coins from this era, there's still a lot of potential out there for lucky finds. And the beauty of coin collecting is that knowledge truly is power. What looks like an ordinary coin to most can be a jackpot to someone who knows what to look for, and the 1983 Lincoln cent is a perfect example of this phenomenon, embodying the intersection of history, economics, human error, and the sheer randomness of minting operations in a way that creates mystery and excitement for collectors of all levels. And it also serves as a reminder of how transitional years like 1982 and 1983 are often rich with anomalies due to the logistical complexities involved in changing materials or minting procedures, and with the US Mint producing billions of coins annually, even a tiny fraction of mistakes can result in a small but highly valuable group of coins that fetch top dollar at auction houses, on eBay, or through private sales. And as more people become aware of coins like the 1983 penny and begin to educate themselves about what makes these errors significant, the demand for certified examples continues to rise, driving prices higher and making the search for these treasures even more exciting and worthwhile. So whether you're a seasoned collector or someone just starting out, the 1983 Lincoln penny offers a compelling opportunity to turn a penny into a small fortune, and all it takes is a bit of curiosity, a good eye, and maybe a digital scale, because you never know what might be hiding in your change jar, that old drawer, or even in the next roll of coins you open. And stories abound of people finding valuable coins completely by accident, just by taking the time to look closely. And as long as coins are minted by humans, mistakes will happen, and those mistakes, when they slip through the cracks, can become treasures for those lucky enough to spot them. And in the case of the 1983 Lincoln cent, it's not just a coin, it's a piece of numismatic intrigue, a modern-day relic with a story to tell and the kind of value that makes it worth every second spent searching. And while the 1983 Lincoln cent has stunned collectors with its massive price tag thanks to rare composition and doubling errors, the intrigue doesn't stop there, because just a few years later, another ordinary-looking penny shocked the numismatic world once again, the 1986 Lincoln 1-cent coin, which in certain extremely rare error varieties has sold for up to $17,000 or more. And what makes this particular year stand out is not necessarily the historical context or a known transition in composition like in 1982 to 83, but rather the sheer unpredictability of minting flaws that have surfaced in this date. And when you hear that a modern 1-cent coin minted in the mid-1980s could be worth as much as a luxury car, your first question is probably, how? And that's exactly what we're going to unpack here in full detail. So if you thought checking pennies was only for kids saving up for candy, think again, because with just one of these rare error varieties, you could be looking at a five-figure windfall, and it all starts with understanding the unique errors that define the 1986 Lincoln cent as a major sleeper in the world of modern era coins, because while billions of 1986 pennies were produced, making them seem common and unremarkable, there are rare examples among them that possess dramatic minting mistakes, the most valuable of which is the so-called off-metal error, where a 1986 cent was accidentally struck on the wrong type of planchet entirely, meaning it wasn't made from the correct copper-plated zinc blank, but instead may have been struck on a foreign coin blank, or even a leftover planchet from a completely different denomination. And these off-metal errors are especially intriguing because they suggest a breakdown in mint control, with the wrong coin stock being fed into the presses that were set to strike Lincoln cents. And imagine for a second a penny minted not on a zinc core but on a dime planchet, resulting in a smaller, lighter, and silver colored coin with Lincoln's image squeezed into a space that's clearly not meant for it, or a coin that appears thinner, doesn't ring like a normal cent, and has a weight that's inconsistent with any known U.S. penny standard. And this is where things get really fascinating, because the value of such a coin isn't just in its metallic curiosity but in its extreme rarity and the mystery surrounding how it could have come into existence. And as it turns out, one such coin, a 1986 Lincoln cent struck on a dime planchet, has been authenticated and sold for more than $17,000 at auction, setting the standard for how wildly valuable this date can become under the right era conditions. And this is why collectors, especially those interested in era coins, consider 1986 a key date, not because the normal mintage is scarce but because the rare deviations from the norm are so prized and so dramatic. And just like with the 1983 cent, weight becomes one of the most important tools for identifying whether you might have something special, because the standard copper-plated zinc cent should weigh about 2.5 grams, and anything lighter or heavier could indicate an anomaly. And if you happen to come across a 1986 cent that weighs closer to 2.3 grams or even less, you could be looking at a planchet error where the coin was struck on the wrong stock entirely. And just imagine discovering one of these in your change or tucked away in a childhood coin collection. That's potentially thousands of dollars sitting in plain sight. And while planchet errors get most of the attention, other major minting flaws are also known to have occurred in 1986 cents, including dramatic off-center strikes where the image is visibly shifted to one side and part of the coin's design is missing altogether, which can fetch hundreds or even thousands depending on the severity of the error and whether the date remains visible. As coins that are both off-center and still show the full date are often worth significantly more due to their rarity and collectability. And then there are blockage errors, where the image on one side of the coin is inked and mirrored because the coin was struck against another coin that hadn't yet been ejected from the press, leading to a ghostly, distorted image that is instantly recognizable and extremely collectible, and though rare for the 1986 cent. A few certified examples of such errors exist and routinely sell for well over 4 figures, making them another exciting possibility when evaluating this year. And lamination errors, which are essentially peeling or flaking of the metal surface caused by impurities in the planchet, can also be seen on some 1986 cents and, when dramatic and visually impressive, can bring hundreds of dollars. Especially when the error affects the portrait of Lincoln or the inscriptions in a way that makes the coin visually unusual and unique. And the key takeaway here is that the 1986 cent, though often dismissed as just another coppery coin from the 80s, actually has a lot going for it in terms of collectible potential when these major mint errors are present. And part of what makes these discoveries so thrilling is that they are often hiding in plain sight, buried in jars, stuck in drawers, or passed over at coin shows because they don't look unusual at first glance unless you know what to look for. And that's where your own attention to detail and willingness to investigate come in, because a small investment in a good digital scale, a 10x magnifying loupe, and a basic understanding of U.S. mint procedures can put you on the path to spotting one of these valuable pieces. And much like the 1983 cent, authentication plays a huge role in determining the value of a 1986 era coin. And any potentially valuable example should be submitted to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC for evaluation, as their certification can turn a curious find into a verified rarity worth thousands. And collectors are always on the lookout for high-grade error coins because the combination of a strong mint state grade and a major error dramatically increases demand. And even coins with minor wear but possessing extreme errors can command top dollar. And with demand for rare Lincoln cents only growing, especially for error varieties from the 1980s. The timing couldn't be better for hunting down coins like the 1986 cent, because even though more people are becoming aware of their potential value, there's still a vast number of these coins circulating or sitting unexamined in personal stashes, and given the size of the mintage in 1986, the likelihood that more valuable errors are still out there is quite high, but only for those willing to take the time to examine what others overlook. And when you consider how a single coin, just 1 cent, can be worth as much as $17,000 simply due to a fluke in the minting process, it really underscores why modern error collecting has become one of the fastest growing sectors in the numismatic market. And it's not just about the money either, because every rare error tells a story about how it came to be, what it reveals about mint technology, and how human oversight or mechanical failure can give rise to something genuinely extraordinary. And that's part of the magic of coin collecting. It blends history, science, and a bit of treasure hunting into a single, endlessly rewarding hobby. So the next time you come across a 1986 penny, don't just toss it aside as loose change. Give it a closer look, weigh it, inspect it under magnification, and consider the possibility that what you're holding could be one of the rarest and most valuable modern U.S. coins ever made. Because while the odds are long, the reward is real. And it's already happened to a few lucky collectors whose curiosity paid off in a very big way. And if nothing else, the story of the 1986 Lincoln cent proves that even in a world of high-tech banking, digital transactions, and cryptocurrency, there's still something incredible about the humble penny and the secrets it can hold. And just when you think the surprises in the world of Lincoln cents couldn't possibly get more dramatic, we come to yet another shocker. The unassuming yet highly prized 1978 Lincoln 1-cent coin, which in certain rare and astonishing error varieties has fetched prices up to $26,000 at auction, making it one of the most valuable late 1970s pennies ever discovered. And what makes the 1978 cent so exciting isn't that it marks a major compositional change or transition year like 1982 or 1983, but that it represents a perfect storm of extreme minting errors, freak mishaps, and obscure anomalies that slip through even the tightest quality control systems at the U.S. Mint, giving rise to incredibly scarce coins with serious collector demand. And if you thought only older coins from the early 1900s or coins with historical significance could command 5-figure price tags, the 1978 Lincoln cent proves that modern coins, when struck with the right combination of rare mistakes, can become some of the most valuable finds in numismatics. And that's why this specific year continues to fascinate and energize error coin collectors across the country. Because although over 5 billion Lincoln cents were struck in 1978 between the Philadelphia and Denver mints, only a minuscule fraction of those exhibit the rare traits that lead to sky-high values. And perhaps the most famous and valuable among them is the 1978 Lincoln cent struck on a foreign planchet, or on a planchet intended for another U.S. denomination, such as a dime, nickel, or even a proof cent from an entirely different year. And one such example that gained significant media attention and sold for over $26,000 at a major auction involved a 1978 Lincoln cent that was struck on an aluminum planchet believed to have been left over from experimental or test runs. And considering that the U.S. Mint never officially released aluminum cents to the public and actively tried to recall or destroy test strikes from earlier years, a 1978 aluminum cent is not only an error, it's a numismatic anomaly, a ghost of a coin that wasn't supposed to exist, and it is this forbidden or unintended quality that drives collectors into bidding wars over such specimens. But aluminum isn't the only off-metal composition to appear in 1978 Lincoln cents, as other documented cases include examples struck on planchets meant for foreign coinage, which the U.S. Mint occasionally struck on contract for other countries, and if a blank intended for, say, A 1-cent coin for Bermuda or the Philippines accidentally found its way into the Lincoln cent production line, the result would be a coin with the familiar Lincoln design but in the wrong size, weight, or metallic appearance, perhaps more silver or dull gray in color. And these types of off-metal errors are so scarce and unexpected that authenticated examples sell for tens of thousands of dollars to serious collectors and specialists. And in addition to composition errors, 1978 is also a known year for major double die varieties, where the coin's design is struck twice with a misalignment that causes noticeable doubling in the inscriptions. And while 1955 and 1969s are the most famous double die years for cents, 1978 has some confirmed cases as well, particularly involving doubling in the motto, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty" on the obverse, and collectors will pay large sums for strong examples, especially those in high-grade condition where the doubling is dramatic and easily visible to the naked eye. And beyond doubled dies, there are examples of extreme off-center strikes, where the coin is struck so far off the center axis that a portion of the design is missing altogether, yet the date remains visible, making it a jackpot combination for error enthusiasts, and the value of such a coin depends on the severity of the off-center strike, with more dramatic misalignments commanding higher prices, especially when combined with pristine condition or other secondary errors like die cracks or die breaks. And speaking of die breaks, some 1978 Lincoln cents exhibit a dramatic form of die break called a cud, which appears as a large blob or chunk of metal along the rim of the coin where part of the die fractured and failed to impress the design. And these cuds can add significant value, particularly when they distort the lettering or image in an interesting way, creating a unique visual anomaly. And then there's the possibility of blockage errors, where one coin is struck on top of another that hadn't fully ejected from the press, leaving a mirrored, incus design on one side and resulting in one of the most visually striking errors a coin can have. And although rare in general, a blockage on a 1978 Lincoln cent is a dream find and can command enormous premiums, particularly if it's centered, bold, and the date is still readable. And as with the other rare pennies we've discussed, weight becomes a critical diagnostic tool for identifying the most valuable 1978 errors, and since a normal copper cent from this era should weigh approximately 3.11 grams, any significant deviation from this number should raise red flags and warrant further investigation, because whether the coin is heavier due to an oversized planchet or lighter due to being struck on a foreign or aluminum planchet, the difference in weight can be the first sign that you're not holding a regular penny. And of course, the most important step in confirming a valuable error is authentication by a trusted third-party grading service like PCGS, NGC, or NAX, whose experts can verify the error, assign a grade, and encapsulate the coin in a tamper-evident holder, which not only protects the coin but can instantly raise its value by thousands of dollars. And when it comes to the rarest 1978 Lincoln cents, certification is practically a requirement for resale at the highest levels of the collector market, and while some people stumble upon these coins purely by luck, maybe in a family collection, a bulk lot from a flea market, or hidden in an old coin jar, others actively search rolls from the bank or sort through decades' worth of change with the goal of finding that one jackpot coin. And given how many 1978 cents are still in circulation, it's entirely possible that more valuable errors are still out there waiting to be discovered by sharp-eyed individuals who know what to look for. And with error coin prices climbing steadily thanks to growing interest on social media, YouTube, coin forums, and auction sites, there's never been a better time to familiarize yourself with the key traits and error possibilities that can turn a 1-cent coin into a life-changing asset. And what makes the 1978 Lincoln cent particularly exciting is its under-the-radar status. Not as widely known as the 1983D or 1982 transitional errors, but still capable of producing some of the most jaw-dropping results in the world of modern numismatics when the right error surfaces. So whether you're just starting to explore coin collecting or you're already deep into the hobby, it's worth taking a moment to dig out those 1978 pennies from your collection, your drawers, your car cup holder, or those boxes of inherited change and give them a closer inspection, because there's a small chance, however small, That one of them might just be the kind of rare mint error that sells for $26,000 or more, and the only thing separating you from that kind of find is a bit of knowledge, a little time, and the decision to take a second look at a coin most people wouldn't even glance at twice. And in a world where incredible value can hide in plain sight, the 1978 Lincoln cent stands as a perfect example of how even a simple penny can become a priceless treasure in the right conditions.